Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales, the podcast where real people share their real travel stories to give you destination inspiration and practical planning tips. Today we are headed to the popular Grand Hyatt Baha Mar in the Bahamas with my friend and fellow podcaster, Mary Ellen from the Wonderland on Points podcast, who was also previously my guest on episode 24 of Trip Tales, all about a couple's trip to Switzerland. So welcome back to the podcast, Mary Ellen.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It is truly a pleasure and a joy to spend time with you.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone again where you live, what you do, and about your family.
So I live in Maryland, kind of outside of DC, about an hour, and I am a nurse educator. So I take college students who are learning to be nurses over to the hospital and do their clinical experience with them. I also have 3 kiddos at home. I have a toddler. Then I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader. So we have a pretty wide age span. So when we travel, we kind of have to make, a middle schooler happy and a little toddler happy, which can be tricky. So
yeah, you're like dipping your toes in both sides, like the
yes,
little one and then the one who's, starting to grow out of some of that kid stuff.
right.
Mary Ellen and her co-host Joe do run the Wonderland on Points podcast, which I just wanted to give a quick plug to because I love that podcast. And if you guys, a lot of you message me with questions about points, and I am not a points expert. As you guys know, this podcast is about the destination and all the planning tips you need. But that is a place and a resource for you guys to get all of your points questions answered because they really do it in an approachable and a digestible way. They're 2 moms that are just sharing their journey. So it's not like super overwhelming by any means. And I've learned a lot. And when I tell you guys that I've booked my upcoming trips on points, I learned it from them. So go ahead and check out some of those episodes if you guys are wanting to learn more about points. Let's get into this Baha Mar trip. So why did you decide to book this trip in the first place?
So living in Maryland in the wintertime, we get to the point where we're like, all right, we need some sunshine, we need some warmth. And being that I do book most of my trips using credit card rewards, I looked for, okay, where is specifically a Hyatt hotel because that's my favorite and the best to book on points for the most part. So I found this location. I loved it because we actually have never been to the Bahamas. I've been to the Dominican Republic a couple times. We've been to Puerto Rico. We'd never been to the Bahamas. No member of our family had been there. So we thought, all right, this is someplace new, which is fun for us. And then we have a very active family. We like to be doing stuff. We're not kind of sit on the beach and just lay there and lounge type of people. We need something where we're doing stuff at all times. So this was in a nice warm weather spot, and there are just an abundance of activities at this property. And so that's how we found the Grand Hyatt Baha Mar.
I've heard so much about Baha Mar, but I've never been. We recently visited Atlantis for a day when our Disney cruise ported in Nassau. But the thing I'm curious about Baha Mar is it seems like there's like a lot of resorts or hotels within a larger Baha Mar resort area. There's the Grand Hyatt, SLS, Rosewood. So how does this all work? Is it like one big giant resort and then there's hotels within the giant resort?
Yes. Yeah, they're all right here on the same property. And no matter which of those places you stay, you pretty much have access to the same places. I believe if you're in Rosewood or SLS, you may have some private pools that can only be used by you versus people at the Grand Hyatt. But for the most part, you can walk along the grounds of all of them. And I believe they all give you access to the Baha Bay Waterpark, which is one of the biggest draws for our family.
Okay, got it. Thank you for explaining that. So you went in January 2025 over MLK weekend for 4 nights, and it was your family of 5?
Yes, family of 5, which is always a bit of a challenge.
I know, I'm learning. I booked 1 Hyatt this summer. Surprisingly, a lot of them were okay with 5, but one later I was like, oh, oops, that one wasn't. I'm not sure how I missed that. So don't tell anybody, but I'm sneaking my little one in on a little blow up bed. And I'm just like, we're just all not going to walk through the lobby at the same time.
Yeah, it depends on the property for sure. Everybody in when I was researching to go to Baha Mar, there was conflicting information. Some people said, oh no, they would not let me add a fifth person to our room. Some people said they would. So what I did was I booked for four, two adults, two kids, and then I emailed them right after I made the reservation. So it wasn't right before we came in case they said no and I panicked at the last minute. But right after I made the reservation, and it was a refundable reservation. So if it didn't, go through, I could cancel it. But I emailed them. I said, hey, we decided to bring our toddler. Can you please add them to the reservation? That's all I said. I didn't
Hmm.
mention anything else.
Yeah.
I
No more
said,
details.
no more details. Here's my, the dates, my confirmation number, my Hyatt loyalty number. And somebody responded, all right, added to the reservation. And it was not a problem. Kids under 5 are largely free at this property. They eat at most of the hotels on property free. When it comes to wristbands, this property does give you wristbands that's your room key, and it's also how you get into the Baha Bay Waterpark, but they don't give wristbands to kids under 5 anyway.
Okay.
So, my toddler was 3 at the time of our trip, and it just was not a problem at all.
That's good to know. And that is like you were going for like a substantial 4 night, 5 day trip where you don't want to like mess that up once you're down there because it's like a big trip. The hotel for me, it's like a 1 night kind of just overnight on the way. So I think I'm just gonna like not say anything.
Yeah.
But don't take that advice from me, guys. I was just like, oh, shoot. But it is so hard with five. And like I always say on this podcast, I would love to be in a position where it's like just not an issue booking 2 rooms, spreading out, but we're just like not there right now. And so I just am always like, it's like one big happy sleepover,
Yeah,
everybody.
it's crazy having to book 2 rooms. I mean, it
I
just doubles the
know.
price of everything. We are definitely waiting as long as we can, and we're getting to the point that it's hard,
The
especially for a trip as
bathroom.
long as this.
Yeah, the
The four,
bathroom's the hard part.
yes, oh my gosh, one bathroom if everybody needs to go potty at the same time.
Yeah.
But I can do it for a night or two, like a long weekend. When it gets to be 4 nights was stretching it. By the end of
Yeah.
4 nights, I was like, oh my gosh, I need space. I need quiet. I need space.
Yeah, I've been really interested in that Hyatt family rate thing. I keep getting surfed Instagrams about it. And basically, you guys, this I feel like it happens more in Europe than over here, honestly. But it's this thing where some Hyatts, not all, if you book a room, you can call and ask if they have the family rate plan, which means you can book a second room for 50% off. And I'm like, someone needs to start a spreadsheet with the ones that have said yes to people over the phone so that we can all, like us big families, can just access that spreadsheet and be like, we will stay here. And then you can call and
Yeah,
ask.
it's so true. We're going to Europe this summer, and in Europe, unfortunately, the occupancy laws are very strict. So we are having to book 2 hotel rooms in every location. But I looked into doing that. When you do that, we always book on points. So we very rarely pay anything out of pocket for a hotel room. But to do that, you can't book the second room for half price with points. You have to
Got
pay
it.
the cash rate. So a lot of times I just book with points. But
Because you have the points. So you might as well, because then it's
yeah,
technically free. So
I,
yeah, I
I
mean, I would
want
do the
as
same thing.
little out of pocket as possible.
Yes. Okay. How did you guys get there to Bahamar?
We flew Delta, which is honestly rare for us. We've been Southwest flyers for the last couple years because our family had Southwest companion passes. So 2 of my kids have flown free, and then the toddler, when she was under 2, she flew for free. So we had 3 kids largely for 2 years flying for free everywhere.
That's
So we
amazing.
always went, yes, oh my gosh, it was so cool. It was a really neat, sweet time in life where we could just pay for 2 adults and all the kids were free. But that is over. Our companion passes have ended for the moment. We will get more, hopefully, if Southwest continues that, although
I
who knows?
know.
They're
I
making
know.
so many
Please,
changes.
Southwest, keep the companion
Please
pass.
leave it alone. I feel
I
like that
know.
Britney Spears. You remember that old Britney Spears thing? Leave Britney alone.
Yes. Leave us
Leave
alone,
leave
Southwest.
Southwest alone. But we flew Delta for this trip, and my kids thought that we were in first class. We were not. We were in economy, but they're so not used to having like the in-flight entertainment in every seat. Like
I
just Delta's
know.
a little bit fancier
Oh, a
for
little bit.
them.
We love a Delta flight. We're
Yeah.
also mostly Southwest 24/7. When we fly Delta, the kids are just like, day is made you think we're on Emirates. They just like absolutely love
Yes.
it.
It's so true. And we did use points. And so we only had to pay. So the flights, I looked up the cash value of the flights and it came to just under about $4,000 cash,
Wow,
round
yeah.
trip, five people. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a lot. It's an international flight. But for points wise, we paid 50,000 points a person. And then the taxes and fees, we still had to pay about $600 total for taxes and fees. But I'd rather pay, $600 than $4,000.
Absolutely. Yes. So, how was the Nassau airport once you got there, getting through immigration once you landed?
It wasn't bad. When we landed, we really didn't have to wait at all. I mean, we were in the line not more than 5 minutes at most. Yeah,
Awesome.
I was really happy with that.
That's lucky. How did you get from the airport to the resort?
So this was a struggle for me because I researched this trip heavily and I was in Facebook groups for the Grand Hyatt Baha Mar. Everybody was saying, "Oh, book travel with this person or that person," which those groups can be really helpful for that if you want to plan it ahead of time with car seats, traveling with kids. Sometimes it's nice to have it all planned out ahead of time. We know this person's going to drive us. But in the end, I contacted several people. I kept trying to get the best deal. In the end, I didn't book with anybody. I was literally, the flight was landing and I was messaging somebody on Facebook about picking us up. And in the end, I just scrapped it. I was like, whatever, we're going to take our chances with the taxi. And I was very, very pleased that when you walk out from the airport, there's somebody in a vest. It's very clear. It wasn't like a bunch of people were bombarding me. They were like, taxi, you go here. I went there. The taxis are all in the line. The guy was like, here you go. They were all vans for the most part.
Oh,
So
that's
our
good.
family of five, yeah, I was worried it'd be cars and would we all fit with our luggage? Nope, it was vans, no problem. I told our driver we want to stop by a grocery store on the way there because food is
Smart.
crazy expensive. And so he did say, okay, we can stop at the grocery store. It's going to be an extra. I can't remember if he said 50 cents per minute or dollar per minute. And so I went like supermarket sweep style through that grocery
Yes.
store as fast as I
Amazing.
could. And in the end, it was $60. And then I gave him a tip. I think I may have paid him $75. The way back, when we left the resort, we got to the airport. They only charged $50. We didn't make a stop. And I think I probably gave him 60 for a tip. But that's about how much you can expect to pay for the transfer. I know Atlantis is a little further than Baha Mar, so it may be a little bit more. But for Baha Mar, I would say expect about $60 plus tip.
And then in your research, when you were looking at all those more kind of like book up front professional transfers, were they significantly more expensive than 50 to 60 bucks?
You can get, I think you could still get one for about 60.
Okay.
I don't think you need to pay more than that. I saw some people talking about, oh, it was $100. I think then you're getting ripped off. I don't think you
Okay.
need to pay that much.
But good to know that you feel like the taxi situation is organized and safe. Because, yeah,
Yes.
at some places it's very chaotic. Like when we got off the cruise ship in Nassau and took a local taxi, it was pretty chaotic. It's just like there's like all this hollering, and it was like, you're in this one. No, you're not. You're over here. Da, da, da. But it sounds like at the airport, they might have it a little bit more like organized and that they're vans. What was the grocery store like? Because this is a move for us on trips as well. I love this move. But sometimes, I mean, it's just like you're in a different country. One time I just went to this big old warehouse that had like fruits and vegetables and stuff. And I was like, okay, this works. But I feel like if I told my mom, she would be like, absolutely not. What are you doing getting out in this random grocery store? But it really does help. So, what was the grocery store like? Hey, Trip Tales listeners, I'll keep this short. If you're loving the podcast, leaving a review or buying me a coffee is the quickest way to show your support, and it will ensure that these amazing trip stories keep coming. Leave a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, or buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes, and I'll literally do a happy dance when it comes through. Okay, back to the show.
It was fine. It was small and somewhat crowded, just with like local people, not tourists, but everything was so expensive. I knew that it was going to be expensive, but when you think about these islands and the Bahamas, I mean, everything has to be flown in or, come in on a ship. So some of the food was, I looked at the expiration date, like for the cereal, and it was not expired, but it wasn't that far away from being expired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it didn't taste the freshest,
got it.
but it definitely was the play. And I brought a carry-on suitcase full of snacks as well, but I wanted to get like milk.
Right.
I knew my toddler first thing in the morning when she wakes up, she wants her milk. And so
Yes.
I almost bought a gallon of cold milk. In the end, I actually ended up buying those little, what is it, Horizon, the ones that are like shelf stable, which is kind of
Yes.
weird.
Yeah, totally.
But I bought those and I was glad I did because every room at Grand Hyatt Baha Mar does have a small refrigerator, but I don't think I could have fit a large full-size gallon of milk in there. I
Yeah.
could have maybe fit a like half gallon, but the refrigerator wasn't that cold. And I think I would have been paranoid that it wasn't cold enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now you know these are like shelf stable. They're just like extra pasteurized or something.
Right,
Yeah. She
right.
could drink them warm if she needed to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What was it like arriving to the resort? Is it grand as in its name? And is it one of those lobbies that immediately makes you feel like you're on vacation?
It does. It does immediately make you feel like you're on vacation. They had a couple of, what are the costumes that girls wear? Almost makes you think of Las Vegas, like
Like
the
almost
big
like a flamenco,
feathers.
like,
Yeah, very elaborate
yeah.
costumes like they would be in what's the thing in like Trinidad and Tobago too that Carnival or
Hmm.
just really big fancy costumes that were fun.
Like people
And
were in them or they were on
no,
display?
no, they were on display. They were
Okay,
on
got it.
display.
I was like, wow, what
Um
an entrance.
no, now that would be fun. So that was fun. You can see this is kind of a downside problem. I would think it's maybe a downside to the hotel. You almost walk straight into the casino as well.
A lot of
So,
those hotels are like that though in the
and
Bahamas.
they are, they
Yeah.
are. So you have to walk through the casino every single time. You're like in your bathing suit and cover up walking to the pool, but you're
Yes.
walking through a casino with people gambling at 7 a.m. and you're like, really?
You're like, have you gone to sleep or are you
Yeah.
still awake? Do
You've
you
been
want me
here
to
all
usher you
night?
to your room?
Yes.
Yes, I know that feeling totally.
Yeah, and I would say the check-in can take a long time. I was prepared because I read online again, doing research that some people waited in line for like an hour and a half. So I was like prepared to hunker down, let my kids and my husband take them and go explore the grounds a little bit while I checked in. But it didn't take that long for me. I maybe waited 20 minutes in line or so. But I think we just hit it on a good day when the airport wasn't crowded. Nothing was very crowded that first day.
Yeah, I love those moments. We got lucky in New York City this last weekend. I had read in all these Facebook groups about the hotel I was staying in, lines, lines, lines. Be prepared for lines. But it's almost like if you do your research and you set your bar so low, when you show up
True.
and there's not a line, you're like, this is amazing. Best trip
Yeah.
ever. So we ran into the same
It
luck.
is all about expectations.
Yes, especially with a toddler. We don't have one anymore. We have a 7-year-old. But when we had littles, I was always just like, the bar is so low. Like someone's throwing up, someone's gonna get a fever, like definitely. And
Yes,
then when
it's
they
true.
don't, you're like,
It's
this was
guaranteed.
amazing. Yeah. Okay, what type of room did you book?
So we booked the standard room. Now we booked on points. So this was like two queen beds, pretty standard room. But I was using something called a Guest of Honor Award that is within the Hyatt ecosystem. You can earn rewards. And with Hyatt, you can give your rewards to someone else. You can trade rewards. So there are also some groups on Facebook where people do that. So I had someone, I don't remember what I traded, but I somehow got a guest of honor booking, which is so clutch at this property because it gives you a room upgrade if it's available. And then it gives you the benefits of being like the highest status with Hyatt, even if you're not the highest status, which I am not. So it gave us free breakfast every day. It gave you parking fees, resort fees. Resort fees are already waived if you're booking on points, but parking, if you did rent a car and had a card there, would have been free. So I got upgraded. Now, originally, I don't consider the room they gave me to be much of an upgrade. It wasn't going to be oceanfront. And so after she was already checking me in, I was like, but do you have anything that can see the ocean? And she was like, no, we don't have anything. But then tap, 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 a few minutes later, she popped up and was like, oh, all right. We do. So we did end up with, you're kind of on the side of the hotel, but very clearly an ocean view. It probably wasn't their best
Like
ocean
a
view, but
partial ocean view, but
yeah,
still
maybe
to
it's
see the
considered
water. And
partial.
yeah, good for you for asking. It's always like you never know. And yeah, tap, tap, tap. There's always something in there that's a little better.
Always. I was like, this is a massive hotel. You're telling me there's one? No, I don't
Yeah.
believe you.
Yeah. So, what is the benefit for somebody to trade away their guest of honor stay? Do they expire? And so they're like, we can't use this, but we'll take, I don't even know what the equivalent would be, but 25K points. And then can you transfer points to people? Like, how do you trade them?
So they do expire.
Okay.
They do expire. And so in the Facebook groups, especially we were going in January, this trip was January, a lot of the awards that people earn within the Hyatt system expire at the end of February. So we were coming up on the expiration date for a lot of people. It also was a very unique year where the people who are the highest status, globalist, they got a ton of these guest of honor awards that they could give to their friends or family. They don't really need it because they already have free breakfast. They already have free parking. So that award is not worth much to them.
Got
It's
it.
just helpful if they have family or friends that are traveling with them. So for them, they would rather you give them like a free night certificate that you've earned that's for a category 1 through 4 hotel. They'll trade you for that, or suite upgrade awards, club access awards. These are all things that you can earn from Hyatt. And sometimes they want those because the guest of honor booking doesn't mean as much to them.
Got it. And then is it just like as simple as going into your Hyatt account and putting in their email address and transferring it over?
Yeah, they have to send you, I believe you need their World of Hyatt number, and you just put that in, you give them theirs. So I did a trade with this random guy. You kind of have to vet the person because you can get scammed. Be careful, but I had a good experience with it. A lot of times in the group, people are like, have traded before with this person or successful trade with this person to kind of prove that, okay, this is legit.
That's interesting. Good to know. I might need to join some of these
Yeah.
groups. Where did everyone sleep since you had two queen beds and you snuck in your little one?
Yes. We got off of Amazon the greatest little toddler cot. It folds up just like a camping chair would, and you can put it in a bag just like a camping chair or at a sports game, a chair. But it's a little toddler cot. It's wonderful. It's $25 on Amazon. We actually fit it. We only took carry-on bags, and we have a carry-on duffel bag that we can wear like a backpack, but it's big enough, but just barely big enough that we fit that toddler cot in the carry-on bag and brought it with us, and it was perfect.
So does the cot have a little mini mattress on it within the fold up?
It's just canvas. It doesn't really have a mattress, but I mean, she doesn't care. Kids don't seem to care. Cots,
Yeah.
they
And then
think
you just
cots are
like got an
comfortable.
extra blanket or had one in the room or she
She
also
has her
doesn't.
blanket from
Oh yeah, her
home,
little blankie. Okay.
Yep, her little lovey and blanket, and that's really all she needed.
That's awesome. Probably would just work for like a toddler though.
Yeah, she's
Well,
3, so I think it she could probably the cot is big enough that I think, and she's a tall 3-year-old. She was only barely 3, so a young 3, but she's tall. I think it'll probably work until at least through 4, maybe.
okay. We'll link that in the show notes. That's really interesting. I just bought something a little different on Amazon that is like almost like an air mattress, but you pump it up with your foot and it's thin. It's almost like a sleeping mat for camping, but it's smaller than like an adult would need because my 7-year-old probably wouldn't fit on that cot and might be too heavy for how it's structured. But this just goes on the floor. And I think I could just pack, like we've got a bunch of twin sheets for like when kids go to sleepaway camp and all that kind of stuff. So I think
Right.
I'm just going to pack an old twin sheet and then I've got it rolled up right here. It's like just about this big. Like it's a tiny little thing I can throw in a suitcase.
That's perfect.
I hope it works once I open it and we're there and I need to pump it up with my foot, but it'll be a nice option too because like you said, as my kids are getting bigger, it's like where's everyone sleeping and then I go girl boy girl. And so the older two girl boy don't really want to sleep in the same bed with each other.
Oh, yeah.
So then it's like okay, maybe I'll sleep with the girl and my husband will sleep with the boy. It's always like this big who's landing where musical chairs thing in the hotel rooms for
Right.
us. Let's talk about food a little bit. So, yay for free breakfast. That's awesome. What was the breakfast like? Is it a buffet or is it a credit for one of the restaurants?
It's kind of both. You have some options because it's a large resort property, so there's tons of restaurants on property. There is one large buffet, and we went there the first day. We had grand plans of going to this Cafe Madeline the second day or different things, but once we saw the large buffet and the credits covered that, There was no going anywhere else because it just had so much, including fresh fruit popsicles, that
Oh,
my kids,
yum.
there was going to be not take, they weren't going to go somewhere and order one little entree after being at that massive buffet where they could choose whatever they wanted. So we ended up just going there every single day, and our with the free breakfast that we had, it covered everything completely, and it was definitely the play. Was the food the highest quality ever? I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
not very picky. I just like all the options and having so many choices, fresh fruit, and they would have some Chinese food. I swear my child ate chicken noodle soup one morning. I've got one person eating chicken noodle soup while somebody else is eating, a breakfast burrito and someone else is eating Chinese. Like what is
Yeah.
happening? But that's
Amazing.
why it's so great.
Yeah, that's like the Disney cruise. They've got like egg fried rice in the morning,
Yeah.
and it's like, sounds kind of good.
Okay.
So, but your credit would have worked some other places if someone had this and they wanted to try a restaurant or something.
Yes. So at the breakfast buffet, it just kind of covered it. The other places, you had a certain dollar amount that you could use. I think it was maybe $45 a person. I can't
That's
remember
great though for
exactly.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, for breakfast, it works. Now, the food at this resort is very expensive, and that's what it gets a bad rap for. Because if someone is booking with cash, they're like, okay, I'm already shelling over a ton of money for this property, and it has so much, there's so much to do there that I would argue that it's potentially worth it. But when you add in the cost of the I mean, just exorbitant amount that you have to pay for food, if you don't strategize and plan well ahead of time, like I did, then it's gonna be pricey.
Yeah, I did listen to your episode on your podcast about how you kind of navigated the food thing. And I feel like you did kind of come up with a lot of tips and tricks. So share some of your food tips and tricks, any restaurants that were standout or that like really helped with the food cost overall.
So, aside from bringing your own snacks, bring in a suitcase from home, going to the grocery store there, when it came to actually time to eat dinner, we basically skipped lunch. So, we had the huge buffet every morning for breakfast. We just snacked for lunch with the snacks that we brought. And then dinner, we did want to pay for every day. So on property, there's a place called the Pizza Lab. You can get a really large New York style pizza that's just extra large. And that fed our whole family one night. And that's going to be 100% your cheapest option on the entire property for dinner is to have your family split that big pizza. They also have ice cream there. Now, there's a whole special ice cream shop, but the Pizza Lab ice cream is going to be cheaper. So, when it comes time to get your kids ice cream one night, that's probably going to be also your cheapest bet for that. Another option, if you want to not use the on property restaurants, would be there's the Kraven app for delivery, just like Uber Eats over here in the US. Starts with a K, the Kraven app. So we looked into, we almost ordered like Wendy's one night and stuff because we were like, we came here for the activities. We can eat at the Japanese steakhouse at home. We can eat at all these other restaurants at home. We didn't come here for the food. Now, I know some people, if I was just traveling with my husband, probably we would have wanted some of those nicer dinners on property. But with three kids, we were
Yeah.
like, no, we're just going to get by. We're here for the fun. We're not here for the food.
Yeah. It did seem like there were some food trucks. I don't know if you saw those. I was looking at their
Yes.
Instagram, but it looked like this one famous chef, Marcus Samuelson, has like a street bird food truck there. And then maybe there was a taco truck, which could be
Yeah.
interesting with families with different ages of kids to be like, okay, you get a taco, you get a chicken
Yes.
sandwich.
And those are a little more affordable than the sit down restaurants. So a lot of people do those for lunch. They're down in between where you can have beach access and the pool areas. So they're a great spot for lunch if you're out enjoying the property.
Okay, good to know. Let's get into some of the details of this resort. Tell us about the grounds and the pools and the beach area.
Yes. So there's a ton of stuff included in your daily resort fee. Now, the resort fee is $68 a day. So if you're paying cash, that's another thing that's going to be lumped into your bill.
Wait, I didn't think I realized that resort fees you don't pay if you pay on points.
You don't? Not with
That is
Hyatt.
that
Not with
is
Hyatt.
just with high. Okay. That is huge because resort fees just kind of every year get higher and higher and you kind of don't think
Yes.
about it till you get there and then you're checking out and then you're like, what are all these fees? That is a
Right.
huge benefit to booking on points.
It really is. It's massive. And so I mean, that's why we love points and miles.
Yeah. Okay. But if you do
So
have to pay in cash, it's 68 and it's covering a lot of stuff though.
it is. It's covering a ton of stuff. So there's single and double kayaks, and we did use the kayaks in the ocean,
Love a
and it was
kayak.
smooth water, so it was a fun place to kayak. Stand-up paddle boards, water hammocks, which look kind of like trampoline. I was like, what are those things in the water? They look like little trampolines, but I guess that's what they call a water hammock. I
Yeah.
loved that. Our whole family loved that because it's out in the ocean water, but it's where you can walk out to it without going more than about waist deep. And then I even took our toddler out there and sat her on top of it, and our whole family kind of hung out in the water on the water hammock.
Yeah, it's
That
like
was
a
probably,
saucer. I love those
yes,
things too. They had those at Sugar Beach in St. Lucia where my husband and I went for an anniversary trip. And it was so relaxing because you can like be in the ocean, but you're just kind of like chilling on this hammock. I guess it's a
yeah.
hammock, but it's more of like a
You're right in calling it a
mesh
saucer because
bottom.
it's a
Yeah, it's like a
circle. Yeah, it's
saucer.
like
Yeah.
the type of bottom
But
of
I
a
love those. They're
trampoline,
like
but
anchored to the ground.
yes, so they have those. They have water mats. They have, let's see, Daily Flamingo Ambassador Parade. There's these little flamingos there,
Ooh.
so you can walk your kids down and watch that. There's an aviary sanctuary. You can see some macaws. There's basketball, bocce ball, croquet courts, and then the biggest draw, really, there's tons of pools. So I didn't mention there's so many pools on property. There's a pool that has you can jump a little cliff jump at Dean's Blue Hole, and you can jump off of that. There's a pool that has an aquarium attached to it, so you swim up, and there's sharks and sea turtles in the aquarium that you can see. That's always a hit. Although we went in January, and the biggest thing with the pools is not every pool was heated, but some pools were. So the pool called Fortune Pool was heated, so many people were in that one, and it has a large hot tub as well. Some of the other pools weren't heated. So we didn't spend a ton of time in those other pools. My kids wanted to go to Baha Bay Waterpark, and that is where we spent the bulk of our time. And that's where the best toddler pool is. Plus, the big kids were so happy there. So it was the perfect blend of big kid fun and toddler fun.
I saw your highlight bubble. By the way, Mary Ellen has a really good highlight bubble if you want to see this resort, if you're thinking about booking it, on her Instagram. What's your Instagram again?
It's at Family Travel for the win with the number 4.
Yeah, she's got a really good highlight bubble. And the toddler area did look amazing. And that is hard to find at a resort, a place that has multiple options for a little one. I feel like there were multiple slides for your little one to
Oh
go
yeah,
down.
there were five nice slides for the toddler to go down, and there were all these chairs and lounge chairs around it. I could just sit there. Sometimes I was in the pool with her, and other times I just watched her go. She would go down one, she'd walk around, go down the next one, and she would just go one by one down all of these slides. She was happy there for hours. And
That
then my
is
husband,
huge.
yeah, it was so huge. My husband would take the big kids away, and it made it more relaxing for me.
Yeah. Do you think you would let your big kids, or did you at any point run around this water park by themselves? Like, did you feel safe enough for that on this property?
I did, especially on the weekdays. So we were there on a Thursday and a Friday before the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Cruise ships, so it's this property, this water park is open to the hotel guest, but it also is a public water park that people could come to, and a lot of the cruise ships bring people there.
You can buy like a day pass too if you're on a cruise or
Yes, you can
in the
buy day
Bahamas for something
passes.
else. Yeah.
But on the weekends, so there were definitely noticeably more people there on the weekends. On the weekdays, it felt pretty empty, honestly, and there just weren't that many people all around, even though it was a holiday weekend, MLK weekend. So I mean, I give my kids a fair amount of freedom, I feel like. I'm not a real helicopter mom. So
Same.
I felt my husband enjoys all the water slides, so he was largely with them. But I would have felt okay with my two big kids,
Yeah.
on their own.
That's
Yeah.
good to know. At Atlantis, it was a weekday, and I agree that it did not seem super crowded, but it is so sprawling. I mean, unbelievably sprawling that it was hard to kind of keep track of them. And we would try, but then similar to you, I've got like a littler one and then older ones, and the little one's not going to go on the huge slides. And it just kind of felt like stressful. But it
Yeah.
almost sounds like maybe this might be a little bit more in an area as opposed to massively sprawling.
Yes, it is. I feel like it's a little more contained, and once you learn the layout, you feel more comfortable. And I had sometimes I was like, all right, I'm going to be right here with Violet. You guys can go do that and then come right back here. And I felt fine about it.
Okay, that's good to know. It also looked like there was a lazy river that you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, that was one of the activities that was fun for all the ages. There was a nice lazy river. It does have a wave element, so it's not just perfectly still the whole time. There's a little bit of a wave that pushes you forward at one point that my kids enjoyed. And
Yep.
then there's a flow rider. My son loved that. That was the first time he had done surfing. And he did it one day. I swear he did it for like 5 hours.
Hmm.
He kept doing it. And once you had to start on one side that was a little easier and you had to just be on a boogie board. And then once you passed that, you could go on the harder side. And that never had a line, really. So there was a line for the easier side, but if you could graduate that to the other side, he just could go over and over and over again. And he just spent so much time doing it.
Everything looked amazing. The cliff jumping off of the like, it's almost like one of the pools is almost like there's like these little caves that you can go into that have the
Yes,
aquariums in them. And it really does look like you're like swimming with the sharks or one with the sea life. That looks so cool. It's very Instagrammable.
for
And
sure.
then the cliff jumping, I could see even if that pool was cold, my kids would be jumping off of those cliffs a million times because it's just cool. It feels like you're
Yeah.
cliff jumping, but it's like super safe in a pool. And then you had one video, I think it was almost at the very beginning, probably when you guys first arrived, that was just like so gorgeous. It's like the one of the main focal points, I think, of the resort with like a long, shallow, rectangular pool,
Yes.
palm trees lining each side, purple and pink flowers, and those little like water spouts gently shooting into the pool along the edges. And I was like, that just screams vacation. You walk up and you're like, we've arrived.
Yes, and that area you is adults only, and I think you can
Ooh.
only really swim there if you reserve the beach chair. So there are some things that you can pay extra for that aren't included. We did none of that because for
Okay.
us there was enough included things, and again, we were on a budget. We didn't pay a dime for anything extra. But that pool, if I was there only with girlfriends or myself and my husband, I wanted to be away from all the screaming children, that would be something to consider.
It looked beautiful. It sounds like this probably wasn't an issue on the weekdays because it didn't seem like the resort was at capacity. But on those weekend days, did you have to wake up early and play the chair game, or were you good to find chairs throughout the day?
I really didn't. Now, in saying that, we're early morning people, so we were out there pretty early. Where I did notice it come into play was the breakfast buffet, especially on the weekend. We got there, and I wish I could remember the timing because I don't know if it was right before 9 a.m. or right before 8 a.m. I mean, we're pretty early birds, so we were up pretty early. But the earlier you can get there, we were able to pretty much walk straight into the breakfast buffet every time. But when we would be leaving the breakfast buffet, there would be a crazy long line to get in. So a lot of people make reservations at the restaurants on property well in advance. I didn't make a reservation for anywhere. But again, we mainly ate at that Pizza Lab restaurant and we were kind of budgeting our way around the property. So think about that. If you are going to stay here, you can make reservations. A lot of people recommend you make reservations. I never did. So if you go early enough for breakfast at the buffet, you should be fine, but something to think about.
So it sounded like you could reserve some pool chairs if you wanted prime access to one of those
Yes.
adult pools or, probably prime chair access at some of the other pools. What about the beach? Are two chairs included in your resort fee, or do you have to reserve those if you want them?
We didn't have to reserve the beach lounge chairs on the main beach. We just showed up and you just find
Awesome.
an empty spot and they'll bring you an umbrella too. Didn't have to reserve any of that. Now there is a separate beach club that is you enter the water park and then it's right there. There's a separate beach club that has a nice infinity pool that lines up with the water. That beach club you can only enter if you reserve chairs. And I think in the price of reserving the chairs, you also get food included. So it's kind of like you're paying for your food. So a lot of people think that it's a good deal, especially people who want to get away from small children. It's
So
a
is it
little
adults only
quieter.
over there?
I can't remember if it's
Okay,
result. I apologize. I can't remember if
that's
it's
okay.
adults only or not because we didn't access it. Because again, we didn't want to pay for anything. We were like, there's
Right.
enough fun stuff without that. But it's something to look into and consider.
Yeah, I would say join one of those Grand Hyatt Bahamar Facebook groups if you
For
want to do
sure.
your research on all these different areas and what you can do during the day. Speaking of that, are there activities to do throughout the day or like a kids club? I'm sure they're offering excursions all over the place if you want to pay to go snorkeling or whatever. So what are kind of some of the activities throughout the day?
Oh, yes. So for us, the activities were eat breakfast, go to the water park, spend all day at the water park and the beach, and
Yeah.
then eat dinner. But there are added things that you can pay for. There's a touch tank that's $20. I believe three and under are free with a paying adult, where you can go touch some animals. You can do aviary bird feeding for, I think, $12 a person, where you can go feed the birds. There's a game zone arcade for kids. So there's the casino area, but then there's also an arcade for kids. That's $2.50 per game. There's
Mm,
mini golf
that
on
adds up
property.
quick.
Yeah,
$2
that adds up
and
real quick. Yeah.
arcades are so, I mean, my son loves them, but I'm like, we just spent 50 to $100 on nothing, or they get tickets
Yes.
and they walk out with like a rubber duck and you're like, okay.
I didn't think that we were going to be able to avoid the arcade, but my husband went and looked at it at one point and was like, I think we can skip it. And it's not in a very obvious location, so your kids might not spot it, which is
Nice.
nice.
Yeah, good to
So you
know.
can make that choice whether you want to. I did kind of allocate some money for it. I was like, all right, well, we'll set aside $20 a kid if they want to
Yeah.
do that. But I didn't offer it. I was only going to have that in case they saw it and wanted to do it. We did do mini golf, which is $25 plus VAT per person. Five and under are free. Now, here's the thing with the mini golf, and I mentioned this on my podcast. So everything, I guess everything at the resort, they want you to just pay on your, like, bill it to the room with your, tell them your room number, your last name, they bill it to your room. Somebody had given me some cash as a gift. And so I set aside that cash to do activities and pay for things on this trip. So when we went to mini golf, I was like, let's just see if we can pay with cash because we have this cash. Let's pay in cash. The mini golf guy was like, no, you just charge it to your room. And we are like, yeah, but we want to pay cash. Can I give you the cash?
He's
And
like, hey,
eventually,
budget lady, we
yeah,
just
what are
charged the
you
rooms here.
doing,
What are you
woman?
doing?
Look, cheapo. You don't know how these resorts work. But eventually he was like, all right, give me that $20 bill and y'all just go play. And so
Nice.
it
So you
we
might
didn't
have gotten a
actually.
deal in the
We
end.
got a steal of a deal on the mini golf by being the budget losers that we are.
That's amazing. So you
It's a
guys
really
paid
cute
20
course,
bucks
though.
for your whole family to go, but it normally would be
Yes.
$25 a person, adults.
That is correct.
Awesome.
So that was nice. And it's a nice course. It looks like a real golf course, but mini. So it doesn't have like, a random
Spinning carnival.
windmill
Yeah.
spinning thing. Yeah, it looks like a mini real golf course, which is cool. We pretty much play putt-putt wherever we go. My son and my husband just love that for somewhere. They compete, they
Yeah.
keep track. It's serious for them. The rest of us are just kind of messing around.
Yeah. My son loves golf and putt-putt too. So that's good to know they have that. Is there anything that you brought along aside from the toddler bed that you found particularly helpful? Like any travel must-haves you're bringing with you all the time now, or any little hacks you have for the hotel room?
So I always bring Ziploc bags because I find that I want, or, they pack smaller than other containers that you might put kids' snacks in. So I bring a soft-sided cooler that I can tuck away, and I'll just kind of fill up Ziploc bags with lunch or snacks throughout the day and throw those in our cooler. So I definitely always bring that. Water bottles. So all throughout the property, there are refillable water bottle stations, and
Love
they give
that.
you, yeah, I really like that. They give you two free water bottles, or maybe we even had four. I think there were four in our room since we had a two queen bed room. Those water bottles, I think, are aluminum. So some people really want to stay away from that. So if you want to stay away from that, bring your own water bottles. If you're okay with that, then they're going to have some provided water bottles for you in the room. They
Nice.
also provide sunscreen at all the
Oh,
towel huts on property. It might not be your favorite sunscreen, but if you were to run out or forget yours, there is some sunscreen available there, which is also kind of
nice.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I always bring medications. There is a medical clinic at the resort. If something happens and your family is sick, I've heard mixed reviews on that, but it is there in the case of an emergency.
Yeah.
But I always, of course, bring our own little mini pharmacy, especially anytime I'm going out of the country. I have
100%.
a
Yeah.
whole little pharmacy.
Well, you're a nurse too, so you're probably like, I've got everything covered.
Yeah, we're gonna be covered.
Yeah.
Although there was a moment that I felt like my toddler might have appendicitis, which is
Oh,
rare for a toddler, but she kept holding exactly where your appendix is, and she would just grab it randomly and say,
Hmm.
ow, ow. And I started freaking out because I did not get travel insurance, medical insurance.
Mm.
That's something I don't know. I just didn't
I
really
never
even
get
think
that. I
about it.
never
I
get that.
know. And I panicked because I was like, if this is appendicitis, we're about to be at a hospital in the
Hmm.
Bahamas and it's going to cost a lot of money and be scary. So it was the first time that on a trip I was like, I can't cause myself this stress again. I may want to look into travel medical insurance.
Yeah. I will say though, I have almost been 100% that all three of my children have appendicitis at any given time in their life because you're just
Yeah,
like so scared and then it's like they're like just constipated or something. Not to make light of if you go
right.
through it. But I mean, my sister and I always joke that there's so many things that like I'm like they've all had meningitis, their neck hurts,
They've
like
all
I'm like
had.
down the
Yes.
Google hole and then it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're fine the next day or whatever.
Oh, a couple other things you should bring. Definitely, if you have a little one, bring a stroller because the resort property is very large and sprawling, and you do not want to. We almost left without a stroller, and my husband was like, "It's fine. She's 3. She can walk a little bit." And I was like, "Absolutely not. We have to have a stroller." I actually went and bought because I didn't want to bring our giant Bob stroller, although
Right.
we have taken it, we've traveled with it before, but we were all five staying in one little hotel room. So I just wanted a cheap umbrella stroller and we didn't have one at the moment because our last one broke. So I went and got at Walmart the night before we left a cheap little umbrella stroller and used it, and he was so glad we had it. He was like, "Oh, you're right. We definitely needed this stroller." And then if your child wants some sand toys, that might be nice to pack too, just so they can play in the sand because there wasn't a whole lot of that provided.
Yeah, super easy to find now. I'm sure everybody's already heard about this, but there's like flat packed ones on Amazon that are collapsible that can you can just get the box shipped to your house and put it in your suitcase and it's like, an inch thick and then you kind of uncollapse all the toys once you get there. We brought that to the Bahamas for on our Disney cruise and loved having that. One other thing I saw on their website that looked super fun, which I'm sure you guys didn't do because you were there with all your kids, but if you were going just on a girls' trip or on a couples trip, John Batiste, it's called the John Batiste Jazz Club, is there. And it
Yes.
looked very cool. It was like, I think it's probably adults only, like a nighttime jazz club that was quite large, at least it looked like in the photos and videos, very swanky. Like you can go kind of watch some piano or some jazz or some music in the evening. So if you had older kids that are okay with being in the hotel room while you go explore that, or again, if you were going without kids, that looked like a super cool place to spend an evening.
Yeah, I thought of you actually when I saw that because you came on the Wonderland on Points podcast and you've talked about the jazz club at the Grove Park Inn in Asheville.
Yes.
And so when I saw this jazz club, I thought about you. I was like, oh my gosh, Kelsey would love this.
Yes, we love live music. So I was like, ooh, and I guess like it's in partnership with John Batiste. He's not always there, obviously. He's a very busy person, but it is named after him, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else at the resort that we didn't cover off on that you want to share?
There were a couple other optional free things that you can check out. In the evenings, the fountains out front, almost like you're in Vegas at the Bellagio or something, there's a fountain show. And so if you get disappointed and you're not on an oceanfront room, the other rooms that are fountain view, that's kind of fun because from your room or from your balcony, you can watch the fountain show. We walked out there after dinner a couple nights and watched it. So that's a fun little thing you can do. And then the other thing I wanted to do that I swore I was going to do and that I didn't take advantage of is they call it a free complimentary 15-minute photo shoot for families. Now you do pay for the pictures, but it's hard, proof of mom. Was mom even there? Because you're
Right.
taking all the pictures. So I really wanted to do the photo shoot. I brought matching dresses for the family to do like little beach photos. And then in the end, I just could never get myself. If I had been there again with as just a couple, like with my husband, I would have been willing to get all fancy at night or something and try to take these pictures. But with the kids, I could
I
never
know.
bring myself to really make them look good enough to go do the pictures. But that is an option and something fun to look into. I know if families are going together with grandparents, aunts, and uncles, it's fun to get a big family photo. So that's a really good option for you.
I love that resorts are doing that now. on some of my beaches, Turks and Caicos episodes, people talk about how that's an option there as well. And it's just so nice. Like you're already all together on vacation. Like you said, you brought the matching outfits and they said the photos actually turn out pretty well. But I agree with you. It is so hard, especially at the end of like a saltwater water park type day to be like,
Yes.
now we have to shower everybody and dry their hair and get them presentable for a photo. It
Right.
feels almost impossible sometimes.
I couldn't bring myself to do it. Maybe if we had been there for another day or two, but we really just were trying to maximize our time with everything. And we never did it.
Yeah, this is a random question, but do you happen to know if all the rooms have balconies or just some of the rooms have balconies?
I was looking at the property while we were there, and it seemed like every room had a balcony. Now, they're not big balconies with chairs that you can sit on necessarily, but you can
Okay,
walk out and stand on the balcony, lean over the balcony, in the morning, sip your coffee out there or whatever. So they're not big, but I think pretty much every room has one.
nice. That's awesome. It's always sad when a vacation has to come to an end, but tell us about getting back to the airport and your flight home. Did everything go smoothly?
Well, the flight home, we did have some hiccups. We got stuck in, let's see, was it Atlanta we got stuck in the airport for a while? Our flight got
Mm,
delayed. We don't normally do late night flights, but I wanted to maximize our time there. So I chose an evening flight. There was a snowstorm because it was January. So we got out of the Bahamas, but then our connecting flight, we got stuck and we didn't get home until 2 in the morning, which is just me. I'm not a night person. And
mm.
so I was so miserable,
Yes,
stuck in the airport. The toddler needed to go to bed. It just reminded me why 95% of the flights I book for our family are direct. We don't do a lot of
yes.
connections. We thankfully did get back. We didn't have to stay the whole night in the airport. But anytime you live in Maryland or somewhere north of Maryland, especially, going anywhere in January is kind of a gamble. You never know what the weather's going to bring. So we got home. We didn't have to stay overnight somewhere, but it was a little dicey.
Yeah, I was actually listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about a website, which I'm sure you're already familiar with, but I'm just going to share here because I'm like, ooh, I'm going to start playing on that. And it's a website where you can look at all direct flights from your airport, flightconnections.com.
Yes.
Um, because otherwise you can look on all your different airlines that you're used to using, but sometimes you might not know that there's this like one random airline that does fly direct somewhere. So similar to what you said, I really don't like having connections if at all possible. And so I'm like, "Oh, I'm not sure what we're doing for fall break. I'm not sure what we're doing for spring break next year, but I'm going to spend some time playing on flightconnections.com and maybe pick a place that's direct from my airport."
I love Flight Connections. I was just on there this week because I was booking, it's my 40th birthday coming up in a few
Ooh,
months. And I
yay.
told my husband, I'm such a nerd for airport lounges and I love going in. We have free access with different credit cards that we have. That's part of the points and miles game that we play. And so I was like, I don't even care where we go. I just want to go to this airport lounge I've never been to. Let's go there. I looked up on flight connections what are direct flights from this airport that I wanted to visit. And that's kind of how I planned my whole trip was around what I could find on flight connections that allowed me to go to a specific airport that I wanted to see the lounge. Isn't that
What's the
ridiculous?
lounge and what airport? No, it's not ridiculous. I want to know.
So, with the Capital One Venture X card, Capital One has lounges in Denver, in Dallas, in Dulles, which is in the DC area, and also in DCA, which is Reagan Airport, which is where they had that unfortunate, very sad plane situation right in the middle of DC.
Yeah.
But they've recently opened a Capital One landing there with a restaurant and stuff that's free if you have the Capital One Venture X card. So I've been to the one at Dulles, I've been in Dallas, but I still have not been to that one at Reagan at DCA. So I was like, Jared, I just want to go there. I want to see it. The food, it's always done by a professional chef and it's very nice. These are not bootleg lounges. These are very high quality lounges. So I was like, I want to have my birthday dinner at that lounge for free with our credit card.
You want to know something sad? I've never been in an airport lounge ever. So maybe
Girl, we're going to get you
I
there.
know I have dipped my toe into Chase and now Amex points and portals. I've been booking free trips. And maybe that will be my 2026 goal. Maybe I will continue listening to your
Yes.
podcast and I will get myself into a lounge or my family into a lounge in 2026.
Yes.
I think I'm going
Well,
to
you
make
know
that goal
what?
for myself.
That's a big part of this trip was because I have lounge access with that credit card. I also have priority pass lounge access for my whole family. And so when we go to the airport and when we went to Bahamar, every airport that we went in had a priority pass lounge. So we did not pay a dime for food in the airport either direction. And when you
Yeah,
think
that's
of a
huge.
family of five, how much you spend on airport food. Now, I will say sometimes my kids kind of roll their eyes and they want the fun food at the airport because
Yeah,
there
they're
are a
like, I
lot
want
of
to go to
fun
Shake
options.
Shack.
And I'm like, nope, you're eating the free lounge food. So we save money that way. And so when you think about some of the credit cards that offer lounge access have a higher annual fee, and people are scared of that. But in Points and Miles, we talk a lot about how you actually get so much value from those cards that you shouldn't be afraid of the annual fee because it offsets with how much value you get at things like airport lounge access.
Exactly. I think the reason I haven't cared and gone down that path is number one, I just kind of don't know how to do it. So I just need to figure it out. But number two, Nashville BNA doesn't have great lounges. It's not
Right.
one of those airports that has a Chase or a Capital One or anything. So it's almost like I think we might have a Delta one or something, but there's not like this coveted lounge to try to get into. And that's where we are 50% of the time. And so maybe if I do pick a lounge that seems amazing to try, then I would just kind of go for a trip to that airport, you know? But for me, it's kind of like we're just at
Yeah.
BNA. And they just recently renovated it and it's lovely. So I don't mind going to BNA and not being in a lounge, but maybe I'll change my tune in 2026. Okay, Mary Ellen, we are going to wrap this up the same way I wrap up every episode. If someone out there is planning a vacation to the Bahamas, what is it about Grand Hyatt Baha Mar that would make you say, just book it?
For us, it was the Baha Bay Waterpark. My kids, I don't think we will have another vacation that they love more than this one. They loved that water park. And there are other resorts that have water parks, but so maybe it's not, super unique to Grand Hyatt Bahamar, but it was perfect. It was perfect for the toddler and the big kids. It had that perfect mix where all of my family members, every single family member, had things that they loved at this resort, and largely because of that Baja Bay Water Park. So for us, it was super memorable. I would just always treasure this trip. My husband actually got to see one of his favorite NFL players at the Baja Bay Water Park. So for him, he already loved this trip. And now it will truly, I will never be able to top this trip,
Super
when you get to see
cool.
that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everyone where they can find you online.
Yes, hop on over to Instagram at Family Travel for the Win. And then on Facebook, we have a Facebook group. It's called Traveling on Points, Wonderland on Points. If you search for either of those things, you can probably find our Facebook group, and we would love to have you.
Yes, I'm in the Facebook group and it's very helpful because they post all the things you need to know that us newbies are all trying to learn.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
thank you.
old, so I think I like Facebook better.
I
I
know.
am so more apt to post things in the Facebook group than I am to like make a reel on Instagram. That feels harder than just posting it in the Facebook group.
Whenever I post on Facebook or I'm on Facebook, my oldest daughter is like, "Why are you on Facebook? That's for old people." I'm like, "Well, I
I
am
know.
old, okay, and I
I
like
am old.
it." All right. Thanks so much for all this awesome information.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelsey.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.